Good evening, everybody. It's Monday, April 19th, 2021. My name is Mike Langford, and welcome back to another episode of DearBands Live, the podcast that explores the paths and stories of career-minded artists and music industry professionals. My guest tonight has been playing drums in bands for as long as I've known him, including A Match for the Curious and the Joy Arson. His current band, The Crooked, has kept busy during the COVID lockdowns, most recently releasing their Crooked covers, including Billy Talent's Fallen Leaves and Chris Isaak's Wicked Game. He's also been heavily involved helping build bands and develop talent with his Toronto-based company, Of the Bear Bookings, along with curating bands and lineups for festivals, including Indie Week. Tons of experience being in bands, listening to bands, and working with bands. Please welcome my guest tonight, drummer and booker, not to be confused with a promoter, but a booker of bands, Dell Orso.
Hey, how's it going, Mike? Thanks for having me here.
It's going pretty good. How's it going, Dell?
I'm good. Just enjoying post-birthday come down.
I was going to say happy birthday again. It was your birthday yesterday. Turned 27. How's 27 feeling?
Pretty good. Finally made it there,
That being said, it's you had your 26th COVID birthday last year, and your 27. It's how's the second COVID birthday?
Don't expect much, and you come out on top. But my girlfriend Lisa really hooked me up and pampered me, and it was really nice.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
You can always make the best of what you got.
Exactly.
And if you got a good partner, that's a lot. So.
And now we're experienced. That's 2 years in. Let's hope there's not a third.
So yes, let's keep our fingers crossed for that. We've got enough at 2 of those. What's new? I know you got some new music that's come out. The Crooked covers.
I guess we kept busy during quarantine with we did some covers with the Crooked. We did Fallen Leaves, Billy Talent, Wicked Game, Chris Isaak. We did some other stuff, and we got Pastime Paradise from Stevie Wonder coming out.
Oh, okay.
So it's gonna be a little different. Put our own spin on it, and we've been working on some originals. We kept busy building a studio in my basement here, so we, trying to cut down costs and trying to stay as creative as possible during COVID times where we can't do much else.
To comment on your studio there, the backdrop there, I do like the symmetrical, the guitars hanging on the walls there and lights and stuff. The vibe is very important with our spaces that we're creative in.
For sure. We got a lot of greenery. I see you got a plant behind you as well. Got a lot of plants in here, a lot of lights, and just trying to create a mood when, it's important and with music.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was trying to think where to start, because like full disclosure, like we know each other for a long time now. We're probably I want to say don't want to date ourselves, but well over 10 years at this point. What kind of got you into music?
Just growing up, I always wanted to learn an instrument. My brother was a guitarist, and he was jamming with a drummer that left a kit in the garage. So slowly I'd start sneaking down and playing drums, little by little. And I was always afraid he would catch me and scold me. But when he finally did catch me, all he did was like, "Hey, hit harder." So he kind of encouraged me to hit his drums. He's like, "I don't care if you hit my drums." And from there, I think I was like 12 years old. Slowly started jamming in bands when I was 13. Been playing shows since 14. It's been hell of a long time, I guess.
Do you remember your first band?
Yeah, we were. What were we called?
And I mean first band when you had a name. Because I know there's like first bands where like you never actually have like rehearsals or jams or anything.
We were called Letdown.
That's not bad.
Yeah, we played a Supernova Battle of the Bands at the Cathedral. Wow. I think I was 13 or 14, and we ended up winning some recording time or something. We were just young lads, just playing originals and some covers. We did some Super Beast by Rob Zombie, like just easy stuff because we're just starting to get our own footing in the door, right?
No, that's pretty awesome though. You said 14. For anyone that's not familiar, Supernova concerts in Toronto, GTA, they usually have what, 15 bands, 20 bands?
Yeah, I think it was
There'd be a lot of bands. They would book a lot of bands, and it'd become a bit of a thing. And but that being said, too, it was a place a lot of younger bands got a chance to play, at least.
Yeah, nobody knew how to book a show, and
No.
You weren't really making money, but it was kind of cool to play the Cathedral, or the where else were you going to play at that time? Nothing was really all ages. All I knew was a couple clubs were all ages, and it was a good way to get started, a horrible way to continue.
That is an excellent quote. And it applies a lot to that, and probably applies to a lot of things in music in general. No, it's interesting because like the when you talk about starting playing drums, because one of the things that I always kind of hear, especially with the parents, like, oh, when should kids get into music? I'm like, or an instrument. I'm like, it's always about access. Mm-hmm. It's just having access to guitar, piano, drums, bass, like anything. So it's one of those things where like you had access to a drum kit, so like you went for it.
No, exactly. And then I think when I was 15, I asked my dad to get me my own, and I was working for a DJ company, helping with light shows and smoke shows at weddings to pay for it. So every month I'd give my dad like $150. And after 3-4 months, I had a new Pearl kit. And at that time, when you're like 15, you're like, yeah, this is the best kit. But then you realize Pearl Export, it's not the best kit. And then you want another kit. And then, you know what I mean? So, yeah, having access was really cool. And that was, yeah, like, I don't know what else I'd be playing. I guess guitar, because my brother was playing guitar.
Did you ever play any other instruments in any other bands?
I played one show with my brother with me on rhythm guitar, but it was okay.
How did it, this is kind of drum talk. How did it feel standing on stage when you're used to sitting on stage?
Well, I was sitting. It was an acoustic show.
Okay.
Not much practice. We did a cover, I think My Friends by Chili Peppers, and a couple of his originals, but overall it was good. It was nerve-wracking. I'd rather play drums, because I ended up actually playing that same show with Reed's band when I was in a band with Reed, Echo Riot.
Okay.
So we ended up playing after as the drummer, so that was good. At least I got the nerves out early, and then I went to rock it on the kit.
That works out. Yeah. I'm just trying to think, like, what was... I do want to talk about booking and show stuff later on. But what would you consider like your first like serious band where you felt like you had that talk with everybody where you're like, do we want to do this, or is it's a hobby, or like we're going to try to do something with this?
Yeah, I guess when I was around 20, I was in a band called Artificial Red, and that was, I think, the first band where everybody was like, yeah, let's go, let's do this. And we ended up getting a booker, and we were, playing sold out Hard Rock Cafe. So like we were doing that scene. We were kind of like a 905 band, like North Toronto, Vaughan. So that was like the first band where we started cutting our teeth, writing and making sure we had some recordings and all that. But not till A Match for the Curious did we really dive in and try to go all in. So I guess around 2005, 2006 is when things started rolling.
Well, with Artificial Red and Match for the Curious, like, what did you feel like the difference between the two bands was, as far as like taking it, trying to take it to the next level?
I think in the end, with the first band, Artificial Red, different vision. The two people, it was 2 versus 2 I found in the band. And I think we were more career driven, where they were more show driven. So we decided to move on, and that's actually where we met Moffat. Um, and he was a singer for that band for a while before A Match for the Curious Stuff.
What do you mean by career driven versus show driven?
We actually wanted to, record and make sure, play tour and make it a career. And where we felt like the other two guys were just happy with the show they played and not really want to advance to play a bigger show.
Like didn't see a bigger picture.
Yeah, exactly. They
Just
were happy
pieces.
playing
Yeah.
the same venue every time, and that's not what we wanted.
It's understandable though, and it's tough because like there, and some musicians are probably getting mad. I'm going to say this, but like there's a line between wanting to try to make something of it career wise, like make an income from it or invest in it, and the idea of it being a hobby. And there's nothing wrong with having, great gear and a great sounding band and it still being a hobby. And I always found that like being content with just playing, the same venue every 3 or 4 months, like even if you're practicing 2 or 3 times a week, where you want to play those shows. And as you're saying with recording and stuff too, the idea of thinking bigger picture, of wanting to get the music out to people, and the way to do that is it is recording and put it. It is difficult to go tour, but the easiest way is the recordings and get that out to people. But that was always one of my things when I see a band like okay with that consistent gig, and they may sell that venue out and it's awesome, but it's like there's no growth from there.
No, I've seen it lots of times with bands. So I learned a lot from being in the booking game and watching bands, how they did business and how they handled themselves. And I steered away from a lot of bands because I just didn't like the way they approached it. And I think they were in it for the wrong reasons. And I started associating myself with bands that understood what it takes to actually give it a good try. And so I got lucky that I got to work with so many bands and got to implement what I learned into my own bands.
So you get to Match the Curious, and is everybody on board to try to make a go of it? Because like we're all also like real talk, like we're like what age are you at this point?
Today?
No. At with Match the Curious. You're 27 day old today.
24, I guess, 25.
Yeah, so it's like we're still pretty young, thinking about what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And at the same time too, like mentally for a lot of people in music, it's like we think that when you're early 20s, you're already old in music. Like you think things should have taken off by now.
Every band has its own story. You never know how long it's going to take. Some hit it with their first song and some hit it on their 6th album.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you put a timeline on it, I think you should have realistic timelines for bands. Have your 3-year plan, 5-year plan, 10-year plan, but don't be shocked that it's not going to happen because it's just the way it goes. You can't plan for that. But as long as you're ready, that's the main thing, right? If someone comes knocking and you're not ready, then that's it.
No, I was asked that question, like how long to give a band, a few months ago, and I said 4 years. And it was Oz, one of the radio personalities, JJO. He's just like, that's a really specific answer, and I'm like, well, with businesses, you give them 4 years to see if they're going to do anything. First year to build it, 2 years to kind of develop the concept. Yeah. And then a year to reflect on it and go, should we keep doing this and do another cycle, or should we, call it? Because you've only got, and this is when we were chatting a little bit before we got going here about like the amount of bands that we know from a specific scene. And there's like a dozen bands with different members that have jumped around. And the thing is like, if it's not working, you've only got so many kicks that they can before you're going to probably hit an age where you're like, yeah, I don't really want to start another one.
Yeah. But also I think we get to a certain age where you start meeting musicians that are like-minded. And
yes.
I find those bands are the ones that have breakthroughs. They're seasoned, they're experienced, they know what they want. They're, then you finally meet those 4 or 5 people that can create something magical Usually when you're like 35, 40 is when a lot of people took family life instead of touring life. And, I find a lot of bands form that way. And if you look at the charts, a lot of the bands that are put together are bands members from bands past. So,
Yeah, no, there's an evolutionary process of
mhm.
like bands forming, and then as you're saying, you're just kind of going their separate way. Because that's the thing, it can be life can cause people to go, we should probably go separate ways. And there's artistic and creative differences, and
Mhm.
that's okay too.
Well, it's
To,
like having 3 or 4 different girlfriends at the same time, and you have to make sure you vibe with all of them. That's hard to just vibe with one person, let alone 4.
yeah, no, there's definitely the relationship and the chemistry of everything can definitely doesn't work for everybody. And not
No.
everyone, if you're not in a band, you don't understand it usually. How it all works. And if you're, I would say too, because we'll probably get into it. Well, we will get into it later, but just like you don't know, I believe you don't know your band until you go tour,
Mhm.
until you are with them 24 hours a day for a while.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to go to the rehearsal space, another thing to be waiting for them to get out of the bathroom.
Yeah. The real stuff. One bathroom, one toilet, 4 guys. So
You learn a lot about people. Learn a lot about people. So yeah, After the Curious, that you said that was Official Red was kind of the first real
yeah,
go at
Match
it.
the Curious was the band. We did our Battle of the Bands, and we ended up going to Germany because we won the Canadian edition. So basically, our first show, um, we played Warp Tour. That was we were a month old. We ended up winning a West 49 contest for a single, and they put us on the Kevin Sess stage. Uh, so we get so it ended up being Warp Tour as the kickoff show for us. And then, and then a week later, we played a Battle of the Bands, and we won $1,000 cash. So that was how that band started. Right away, we're like, oh, maybe it's decent. And then we ended up at another, what the hell was it called? Emergenza, the Battle of the Bands. And we ended up winning the Canadian edition. And they ended up sending us to Germany to play a couple shows at a festival there. So that was cool.
Okay, 2 questions.
Yeah.
Because money in bands is always it's always an interesting thing. How much money is $1,000 to your band at that point?
I was like $1 million, honestly, because we were together for about 3 weeks. We recorded at Ruminal Studios, which was a rehearsal space in Clarkson, I think. And it was this room that was all bare walls, concrete. And we just recorded drums on like 1 or 2 mics, and that's basically the single that got us to play Warp Tour. We did that in a flash, and it was like a sort of a ballad song, but it ended up putting us on Warp Tour. And yeah, they didn't know we won the contest though when we got there. So we got there at 6 a.m. and we didn't end up playing the show till 7:30. Uh, and then they put us between Killswitch Engage and Coheed and Cambria.
Oh, thanks.
Like, oh yeah, that's great. So, but yeah, the $1,000 definitely, man, it was so much money back then.
Felt like money. So there was that going to Germany.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that story?
Yeah, well, it was
Like
kind of hazy.
that experience?
Yeah, because
You
it
say
was
it's
very
hazy.
well, it was very whirlwind. So basically, they took a band from Canada, 3 bands from the States, uh, 6 bands from Europe, Australia, Japan. So they had bands from everywhere. So they flew us Toronto to New York, and then we picked up the 3 American bands. So now we're on a flight with 4 bands, and it's all you can drink. Then we get to London, and we pick up a couple bands from around that area. And then we go to Frankfurt and we meet all the bands from everywhere. And then there's like 17 bands, and we all get on a tour bus, like a school bus. And it's a 2-hour ride to the festival grounds. And in Germany, they love to make sure artists don't pay for alcohol. So, when it's your first big festival and it's open bar, and just it was unreal. We ended up playing a show. It was actually our worst show ever as a band, but we ended up finishing third, so we got to play the second day as well. And then that was our best show ever because we had no, there was, the competition was over. We were
Pressure's
relaxed.
off.
Yeah, the pressure was off. And we got an hour sound check on like a huge like stage, and the Marshall people were there. So they saw us play, which is kind of cool. And they liked our band because they love Canadians. But yeah, Germany was awesome. I got, I guess, a taste of it. We were only there for like 3-4 days in and out. Yeah, but it was great. It was a great learning experience, and definitely made me want to go back, and that's why I went back recently, right?
How much of a rock star do you feel like the getting there, the trip of the plane and picking up the bands? And
I don't think you really think about it. It's just surreal, when it's your first go. And just every time we went to a different airport, we kept picking up more people. So it was just a flow of meeting people. You almost had no time to stop and think about it. And, when you're there for 3 days and then you're back on a plane back home, it's like, whoa, you land and you're like, don't know what to do with yourself anymore.
what gear did you bring?
Just whatever they had.
Oh, you just kind of flew there and like, here's some backline?
It was a battle of the bands that had full backline.
Oh, okay.
They had a great backline, but the problem is such a heavy hitter that they had the drums on their own riser, on its own shitty riser, and the drums were like doing
bouncing.
This, and I would be missing stuff, and I actually ended up pushing the drums off. Like, I was so pissed after the show, and then like all the stage hands were like, no, what are you doing? I'm like trying to play a show. Drums shouldn't be moving. Like, come on.
Not all drum risers are created equal.
Yeah, that was fun.
So.
Yeah, but the next day I made sure I anchored everything a little further down, and that's why I think it was better, right?
A little more comfortable.
Yeah.
So the trip there was pretty rock star. Any highlights from actually being there? I know you said it's a little hazy.
No, yeah. So I guess it was one of the after hours after the festival was ended. I believe it was who played? Boy Hits Car played on the second stage, and then Dell Orso, which is a really big German band, played the main stage. And the after party, basically there was this like older dude that like ran the festival, sort of. He was like this Mountie guy. He kind of was like a very fictional character, and he comes around with this big van, and he's like, hey guys, I'll take you to the after party. And we like 12 of us get into this Sprinter van, and there's no seats, so we're all holding on to the sides. It's just a big cube, right? And he's going around the mountain because where we were playing was in the valley, and he had to go like around the mountain to get to the after party, and we're all just like holding on for dear life. And this is like 3 a.m. And what was awesome, then we get there and the lineup is like 400 or 500 people deep, and we're like, oh man, I don't want to wait in line. And he's like, no, come with me. Takes us right in, takes us to the bar, says, hey, take care of them tonight. So like that was probably the best thing that happened there, besides actually playing the festival. That was unreal.
I'm just thinking, it's like nobody in the group was like, hey, maybe we shouldn't get into this van with no seats in Germany.
You would think so.
Drive away.
You would think so.
Because either it's going to be probably pretty awesome or like worst decision.
It was the best. It was the best decision we made, because even at the party, what I really liked is how welcoming everyone was. What was cool is our festival tags had our flags on it.
Oh, okay.
So ours had Canada, and anytime Germans saw, they're like, hey, what's going on? And they're, funny, especially at that time where marijuana wasn't legal. A lot of people were offering us hash. They're like, oh, you're from Canada, you want some hash? And like sure, like well, why not? But just because they saw the flag, they would like cheer up and like, well, you want a drink, you want something. Like, it was so cool. It was just they appreciated Canadians because they love Canadians in Germany. So that was definitely a bonus.
Sounds like it was a pretty good time.
Yeah.
Coming home, because you had the Rockstar experience getting there. Coming home, was that just a direct flight or?
No, I think it was 24 hours to get home. Yeah, it was the same route. So it was bus to Frankfurt, plane to London, plane to New York, and then to Toronto. And a lot of layovers and yeah.
Yeah, usually the trip home, be it flights or driving or whatever, usually the trip home is just
that much longer.
Yeah, I can feel that much longer. That it sounds like a pretty good run with Match for the Curious then.
Yeah, so we had a really good run. We had a nice EP. They were spinning one of our singles on the Edge. So that was kind of cool. We were actually supposed to play a big Edge show when we came back, but it ended up getting canceled last minute. Because some of us were going to stay in Europe, but we flew back for the show, and then last minute something happened and they pulled the show. So that kind of sucked. But yeah, no, it was a cool band. We had some good times, played some good shows.
So the transition or gap between Match for the Curious and Crooked, how'd the Crooked form?
Well, I was working with JC. He's the singer in the Crooked when he was in his old band Savannah, and they were playing Cherry Colas a lot. So basically, Dave, the old booker, and myself would fight over them because we were both really big fans of the band. But so slowly over time, we lived in the same building down at Queen and Dufferin, and just over time we developed a cool friendship. And he was just getting out of Savannah, and he was playing with Die Mannequin, so he was like sort of in limbo with his own stuff. And he's like, I want to start a band and I want you as my drummer. And I'm like, no. like I'm like, you can get much better drummers. Like, no, but in the end he's like, no, I want to grow a band with you. So he's trying to take on the lead singer role for the first time. And after Match for the Curious, I had a bit of a break, so I was getting back into drumming. So we were kind of growing together, like you said, the first couple of years is development and trying to find your footing. So, and he had a cool vision that really enticed me, and that's why we sort of came up with the name The Crooked. The music was going to be just a little bit crooked, a little different, a little not so run-of-the-mill, so to speak, right? So yeah, that's how pretty much that band formed. And then we auditioned Russ, the bassist, and it was a match like right away. So that was cool. Then we recorded a 4-song EP, just the three of us. So that was kind of cool because we did it like DIY for the first time. And yeah, it had a good kickoff. We played Lee's Palace right away. Like, again, with the connections I had built with the booking company, I got to use them for my own band, which is, lucky, I guess.
It helps.
Yeah. So we ended up playing some good shows right away. We played like Lee's Palace, Phoenix, Bovine, Cherry, just right off the bat. And North by, CMWs, Indie Weeks. So it was like 6-month development, and then we started playing shows.
I wanted to, because I touched on, you said you took a little bit of a break after Match for the Curious. Were you booking shows at that point? Were you thinking like, I'm kind of good for playing in a band right now? Was it just a dare I say, was it a break between relationships sort of thing, where you just like need some time? Because being in a band's a big commitment.
Yeah, I took an extended break. Pretty much the people I was booking didn't know I was a drummer till I started with the Joy Arson. So for like 3-4 years, nobody knew I was a drummer. So it was a while before I even made it public that I was drumming again with the project. So after a Match with the Curious, that's where I met Reed, because we played the same show at the Almo Combo, and that's pretty much when I quit and joined up with Reed and did Echo Ride for like a few months, and then I took a break.
And then there was the Joy Arson between that and the Crooked.
Yeah.
What got you into Joy Arson?
Reconnecting with Matt, because he had been a singer in Artificial Red like 10 years prior. So, I always liked his songwriting style, and he showed me a couple songs. I'm like, sure, let's jam. So we ended up jamming, and then I met Kyle, the guitarist, at Elmo Combo one night, and I kind of tricked him into coming to jam. I told him we were jamming, just him and I. And then Matt was there, and he's like, "Oh, who's this?" And I'm like, "Oh, let's just jam."
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, so we just ended up jamming from there, and then Matt was just working with Diesel before Breached got together. So Matt was the singer sort of for Breached, then transitioned to Joy Arson, and then Bobby transitioned with Diesel. So it was kind of like the beginnings of a few projects. And we were jamming with Mike Ferrero. He was in Blind Race. He was on bass for a bit, and then we ended up getting Rick. So Joy Arson kind of like grew as a friendship. That's how I wanted to form that band. We wanted to be friend first. We were never supposed to be a serious band, but I guess you can't really help that sometimes. So, we ended up recording a couple EPs with you. And after the first EP, we started getting some good gigs. We did some good opening shows, and it was going good. I don't know.
No, it's the chemistry is so important. It's like, again, reconnecting with someone after like 10 years of working together.
Yeah.
And again, just chemistry with musicians and stuff. And it's hard when there's so many variables where everybody's at in life, what their priorities are, what their big picture is and stuff. And it's hard because like people can come back into your life musically, and then, you can kind of grow apart again.
Yeah, for sure.
But with Crooked, I kind of want to go back to, I guess, Europe again, because Crooked got serious with things, started putting some music out and a ton of video content as well. Kudos on that, because that's one of the things, and like not every band's able to do that. But I also see you talked about, your network as a booker with the venues and other bands and stuff. But also looks like the Crooked's got quite the skill set when it comes to being able to record and do video stuff and just kind of and the touring and putting things together. And it's like that looks really valuable for a band, especially these days.
Oh, for sure. Like getting over to Europe is not easy. If you're cold calling venues and bookers, they're probably not going to give you time of day unless you're exceptional and have all your ducks in a row, right? But as just an indie band starting out, we got lucky because our guitar player, Nilesh, was living in Berlin for 4 years before he moved to Toronto, and he had a lot of contacts that he used for that tour, which was kind of cool. And he ended up meeting. He went to Norway on a whim, just to he's a traveler, but he ended up meeting Christopher in Norway, who was into punk scene in Norway, and he ended up hooking us up with 2 festivals in Norway. So Nilesh kind of took the lead on that, which was kind of cool. Not me doing it because I'm usually the one, or JC is doing the Canada stuff, and it was nice to step back and have Nilesh do all that, which was awesome. Yeah.
One thing to trust a bandmate to book a show 2 or 3 hours away.
Yeah.
Are you thinking okay, we're just gonna go to Europe and see how it goes? There's a lot of faith.
Well, we had a staple show. We had that one show where that's gonna be a kick-ass show. And I'm that show will be worth it.
And what was that one?
That was the one at the Sage, at the Kit Kat Club, basically the most popular sex club in the world.
Okay.
But on Thursdays it's rock night.
Okay. We're clearing that up.
So the pool's still open and all that. It's a good time, but it's free cover before 10, and people stream in. We played to 400 people. That was a week after we landed in Europe. So we're playing to 400 strangers. That's that's surreal because there's only so much promotion and you can do on your own, and this is just a built-in night, and that was just unreal. You walk downstairs, the beers, 300 beers in the fridge. They had meals waiting for us, and like they paid us right after. Things you want in a good show, right? So that was our like flagship show,
right?
Yeah.
And then how many more shows did you play around that?
We played 7 shows in Berlin, I think 6. There's so many venues, there's so many districts that we just hit different parts. So our first show was a Wednesday at Wild at Heart, which is kind of like Berlin's Bovine.
Okay.
And it was a Wednesday night. We show up and they're like, okay, you're the only band. We're like, what do you mean? And basically that's just the way they do it in Germany. A lot of places in Europe, they only have like 1 or 2 bands. So we had to extend our set. We threw in some covers. We threw in, we started covering a song in German because our guitarist speaks German. We threw in Billy Talent. Actually, we didn't do Billy Talent on tour. We did White Stripes, Rage Against the Machine. So we threw in some like covers just to win over the crowd, which kind of worked. But everybody loved the German song Ice Bear, which we rocked out because it was an electro song. It was like 1981 hit by like a new wave band done on synth. And we brought it to the rock world. Just
to steer down that route, you shot a video for that song too.
Yeah, so after Berlin, we ended up in Hamburg for 2-3 days just to check out the city. We didn't have any shows there, but we ended up renting a polar bear outfit because Ice Bear, it means polar bear in German, and I dressed up as a polar bear, and we walked the streets of Hamburg, took the subway, bought beer, all dressed as a polar bear. And then we went to the Reeperbahn, which is basically their red light district kind of thing. And I was rocking around with a guitar, like fake soloing, and it was good. It was pretty funny.
So you just got a polar bear costume,
yeah,
and a camera. You just film it and you go, you know what, this will just figure itself out after.
Yeah, pretty much, because we filmed it on two smart. We filmed it on 2 Samsung phones, right? We're like batteries.
Filmed it on phones?
Both of them were, yeah, my phone and Russ's phone.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so we just walked through the streets of Hamburg dressed as a polar bear. It was very interesting. It was a lot of fun.
I can imagine. You hear people bellyache all the time about gear. Oh, we don't have good enough camera. We don't have good enough this, good enough that. And it's just like, I don't know. Rent a polar bear suit, shoot it on your phones.
We had fun with it. And it came out pretty good. Like
yeah, I think it was great. I did not expect that it was to be on your phones.
Yeah, just not even like the S9. It's not even like a great phone. But yeah, no, it was pretty good. That was a good time. Yeah, because we basically went to Hamburg because the bus ride to Poland was cheaper than from Berlin. And then the flight from Poland to Norway was like $20. So we kind of like traveled to explore to get cheap travel. We did it very frugally.
It works though. That's the thing. And we talked about it briefly at the beginning. It's just like that relationship and that trust. And I think we talked, I don't know if we talked about it before we actually got on, but just like, you don't know your bandmates until you go on tour with them. But so many things can go wrong when you're traveling, and it's just like when you're with a good group, and when things go wrong, you get through it and you look back on it and go, oh, whatever, that's what happened, sort of thing. But I can only imagine some of the trips that you're making over there.
Yeah, it's because it's not your backyard. If something goes wrong, you can't go to Long McQuaid, and like it's not like that. It's not your. You just got to make do with what you got, and hopefully make the right connections and all that.
I wanted to hop back for a second. You're talking about playing 7 shows in was it Berlin or Germany?
Yeah, in
But
Berlin.
just the idea of the, like, it's one thing to have the culture, maybe the culture shock of being in a different country, but just like the culture shock around shows in those countries. Because I notice I notice a big difference between Canada and US, between the culture of people that go to shows, how they want to experience their shows, and how would you compare the culture for, say, Toronto and the culture for Berlin?
I found that we were more welcome in Berlin. That's not all the shows, you're taken care of, your food, drinks, and stuff, and you get paid at the end of the night because you're, performing. You're the entertainment. I find in Toronto, they jumble a bunch of bands together, and everybody walks out with like $50 and a bar tab.
But
uh, I, I just feel like that doesn't help bands. They're there to entertain and make sure people are having a good time, and they shouldn't be spending money. They should be earning money because they're, you know, the entertainment for the evening.
but do you feel in Germany they were treating you well because you were a band from another country, or because that's how they treat bands?
That's how they treat bands. Nilesh was telling us, since he had the experience, he's like, this is what's going to happen. Just expect all this. And, it's nice to get an email from a venue being like, are you vegetarian or meat eaters? I'm like, that was strange to me. I was like, oh, yeah. It's like, we're vegetarians tonight because I think we deserve some protein and energy. So I made sure everybody got a vegetarian meal. Uh, but yeah, like stuff like that was kind of cool. And I don't think it was because we were Canadian. I think they get so many bands from all over Europe.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah.
That it's just the way it is. They're hosting a lot of people from out of country all the time.
No, actually, that's a really good point, because like at Europe's, there are bands and people traveling all the time, so it's like it probably reflects a lot on the clubs and the venues, how they treat the bands and artists that would come through. We probably dig into it a little bit, but it's like that. It's really hard to explain to people that have only played Toronto or only played so many venues in Ontario and Quebec, and like there's some great venues here, but when you play in the US or you play in Europe, you start to notice how they treat the bands differently, because you're not wondering about your guarantee or your money. You're not wondering about dinner. You're saying too, with some of the venues, like they'll have accommodations.
Yeah.
Like or they'll make sure that you're taken care of as far as, and yes, there's definitely some tours here where, your agent will take care of some of those details, make sure a band that's on tour is taken care of. But when it falls on the shoulders of the venue, because they want to make sure the bands are happy. And as you're saying too, it's like they've got expectations of these bands as well. It's not just a band off the street that's like, hey, yeah, come do your 45 minutes. And
we talked a big game. We didn't go in like, we had our EPK ready. We had our videos on the go. We tried to be as, fake it till you make it. Try to be as big as possible to someone that doesn't know who you are, and then you win them over in person. That's what you have to do.
It's a good, I don't say it's a good strategy, but it's like it's a way to approach it, because like you can win them over before you get there, and then I think it's yours to kind of mess up at that point.
Just be nice.
There's that too.
Be cordial, be nice. That's all people really want.
So you being over in Europe, seeing how some of the shows are done, how the bands are treated, if we can kind of segue into you as a booker, and I would love to just start right into it, because I heard you go off one evening about like, I'm not a promoter, I'm a booker.
Yeah.
And the difference between what the two are, and how would you describe the difference between a booker and a promoter?
Well, a promoter is someone that basically takes the night. They're the host. They're the ones that are making sure it's just not like they're pushing the show as much as possible as like a party that they're throwing, and they want, they're investing more of their time in inviting people, where I spent most of my time curating and making sure bands had good backline and their drink tickets and their set times. Like that's the difference. It's like I was doing promoting when I started at the Hard Luck and Cherry. I just found it exhausting. The payoff wasn't worth it to put that much energy into it. Where, because my model's always been to make sure the bands are taken care of. But if the bands are taken care of, you're usually the one that's not being taken care of. And as much as I love doing it for free, I gotta eat and pay rent. So when I transitioned back to, I went to Booker, I started taking less of a cut and making. I'm like, now it's worth my time to do what I'm doing. And what I try to do is build a scene and build the right lineups. And if you look back at all the shows I was booking, a lot of those bands became friends and started playing shows all the time with each other. So there was a good network of people that were introduced to each other through shows that I booked.
So you put some of the promotion from the promoter end, like, on the shoulders of the bands.
Yeah, like you're making a bigger cut of the door. So if you want to make more money, sadly, I was not in the. I didn't have the chance to give people guarantees as much as they wanted because I was very independent and I didn't have a bankroll. So, I did it show by show. And then I basically saved the promotion side for my own stuff because I didn't want to double dip. When I started getting traction with the Joy Arson, I was like, oh, now I'm spreading my numbers too thin. I can only promote so many things at once.
Well, it's interesting too with the promoter side, because like I always thought of it, if you're a promoter, you're seeing something that's got the value. So like a touring band or a band that's coming through, or like a band that is going to draw, and you're taking the bet because you can give them a guarantee, and then you can make your profit on how the event goes. And that was part of one of the arguments. It's just like the difference between the promoter and the booker was like the booker's setting things up for the bands to succeed. But it kind of does fall on the band's shoulders. Meanwhile, bands that are asking for some of these guarantees, it's like with the culture here, it's like, what's your value right now though? What have you shown people that you're going to draw people to come? And also too, the thing about, like, we could probably get into it more, but the idea where a band is successful because the bar sales were high or because people paid the ticket to come see the band. And that's been one of the arguments. It's just like, is the band good or was it just a good night at the bar? Because if you can have a $20 ticket and the bar did good, then the band that sold that ticket, that's what they were promoting.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to be in that room. Because again, if the venue's got 200 capacity and it's a wicked band that's playing, you want to make sure that you can get in to go and see it. So you'll pay the ticket, the ticket price. We were chatting about a few days ago, just like the idea of $5 shows and having like 80 people on guest list.
Yeah. You can't do that anymore.
I try not to curse on here, but I'm just like,
yeah, that should be
it drives me insane.
Post-COVID, that should be dead. No guest list, no $5. Like, guest list is for industry. Anyone that can possibly be an asset to you, not just somebody that works for some other company.
Guests. But you shouldn't have 80 guests to your $5 ticket show. I'm sorry.
No, it's not.
Make it a free show then.
Yeah, that pretty much. The thing a lot of bands do, the trick is say it's $5, but offer unlimited guest list.
No, that works too. But
but no, like if hopefully bands took the time during this time to actually work on their craft, and I don't think bands should be worth $5 anymore. If you're going to see 4 bands, $5, that's not right anymore. It's inflation went up,
I don't know. I just like when I see a $5 show, and this was one of my arguments with my past bands, with That's Society. We got flack for not wanting to play Toronto. And my argument was just like, I've been told, and I won't name any names, but I've been told just don't take bad shows. And I asked, what are bad shows? And one of them was like $5 shows
Mm-hmm.
and like with an asterisk beside it, and like free shows with an asterisk beside it, because they end up just costing you money, and
Mm-hmm.
like you're not getting in the right room with the right people. And remember we came back and we played a show with Scott Stapp, and it was like a $40 or $50 ticket. And instantly everyone was like, that's really expensive. That's way too expensive. And I'm like, well, come out and support it. And like, well, I don't like Scott Stapp. I'm like, well, come support us then. Like, just come out and support the bands. I know that it's expensive, but that's
Mm-hmm.
all it was for weeks leading up to it. And then on the last day, guest list opened up. And all of a sudden, these people like started flooding into it. And yes, there's some people that were on there as guests, but it just like it drove me insane, because you're just like, you want a stronger, healthier scene. Some shows are going to cost a little more than others, but why are we dragging down a justifiable ticket
Mm-hmm.
and trying to drag it down to like a $10 ticket? Is
Yeah,
that what you? Is that we would rather do that?
yeah. 10's fine. Yeah,
Well,
but
no, but not. But when you have
yeah,
someone that's like when you have like the voice of Creed, I'm sorry, you're not going to get that for $10. It's not going to
yeah,
happen. But it's just like understanding what it is. It's a bigger ticket, and it's like be pushing to do that. Maybe try to grab a more established band and like bring them in,
yeah,
and then put two bands with it, and then pay
yeah,
$25 to be there. Also to see how they do their show.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
that's another thing too. It's just like when you look around the room and it's like, well, this is the quality of the show. Like it might be good for what we're doing, but like when you see pros do their show, it's like
Yeah,
it's very, very different. Anyways, mini rant with that for a second, but I just wanted to touch on the whole
no, for
$5
sure.
show thing and
Yeah,
guest list. And it's just I agree with you. I hope that is gone
yeah,
when we gonna get back to be able to go to shows. And again, we're talking from Canada, specifically Toronto right
yeah.
now, because I know like most people listening and watching right now are from the US, so things are still going, you know,
Mm-hmm.
as is down there. But actually,
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what venues are left too.
that's a whole other thing,
Yeah,
because we chatted a little bit about that. I think it was last week. Just the idea of like, there's a lot of venues. There's always places for bands to play, but like, were they booking quality or were they just booking quantity?
mm-hmm.
You know, just something to throw on the stage, and it kind of
Mm-hmm.
didn't matter. And it's like, is it with the reduction of venues? Because I think it's like everywhere. It's probably at a reduction in venues. Like, is that going to change the quality of band that they're booking?
Hopefully, it's more selective, and um, some bands don't deserve to play at least Palace yet. You got to earn your stripes. What's a Monday at least Palace gonna do for your career if there's 10 people in the venue? Uh, I always told myself, don't play the big venues until the band is ready to do that. And I was fortunate enough that that's what happened. We got to a point where, oh, finally we're getting an offer from Horseshoe or at least Palace or Phoenix. But you shouldn't play there just because you want to play there. I find that's to me. But there's a lot of people that just are in it to play the big venues.
Well, I think that getting back to that, that career
Hmm.
versus show, it's like if you just want to play there, cool. But if you're looking career, because I agree with you, like you'd rather have 10 people in a 50 cap club than, than 10 people in a 200 cap club. It's like, when would you say a band is ready for a bigger stage or a bigger room?
When they're selling out the cherry colas and bovines, when you're starting to, have a lineup or you can't get in like that, you now it's time for a bigger room and you got the hype behind you now. People love lineups, but uh, and they're drawn to bands that can fill rooms, right?
Would you say a band should get big in their hometown first, or just start
Well, it
branching out sooner or later?
depends. Usually, I guess Canadian bands got to go get famous somewhere and then come back. uh, I find it's happened a lot. It's hard to grow in Canada because everything's so far away. So if you're getting successful in Montreal as a Toronto band, I don't think that really translates to Toronto. Uh, it's so far apart. Like you're not going to get any people from Montreal coming to see you, or if not a handful, right?
I would argue like it's still good to have a following in another city, but like when you talk about things being far apart, it's like once you have your Montreal, like Ottawa is still tough because like not say there's not a ton of venues, but like it's not a big. But we're talking about rock bands too.
Yeah,
Like it's not big enough city with the rock community there where like you can keep hitting that city and it's still gonna be good. Meanwhile, down in the States, you drive 2 hours, you're like in another major city again
yeah,
with another
exactly.
major radio station that can possibly support what you're doing. So it's like it's really tough here because there's only a couple places to. And again, it's like there's lots of venues to play, or there was in the before
Yeah,
times. But it's like when we're talking about cities and we're talking about touring, there's not that many places to play.
no, and it's hard too. Like a lot of venues don't take you in Toronto if you're just an outsider. Like unless you're going through a booker or a promoter. Um, some venues will just throw you on a Wednesday night on a free show and see what happens. But when you're coming from Montreal or Ottawa, that's an expense you can't afford almost.
To go see how it goes, sort of
Yeah,
thing.
it's like, and that's where I was trying to help bands, and they would come from Windsor, from Oshawa, and I make sure that they had a good show, at least a good lineup, and I would slot them in the middle, right? And that's where I was working with the Blue Stones and the Standstills early on. I always made sure that they were highlighted. Like, no, these
Mhm.
bands are good. Let's put them with Toronto locals that are doing well, and they grew their fan base off of that.
Um, Kind of segueing a little bit. You did work really closely with Indie Week,
Hmm.
and like going through bands, curating bands for helping put the lineups together. What was that experience like?
It was interesting. You get a schedule and there's 200 slots to fill, and then you have to, you're listening to a bunch of bands and trying to curate uh, lineups, because it's easy to just throw a bunch of bands on a bill, but I don't want to draw. I don't want to, scare some people away with a metal band and then an acoustic act starts. I found some other festivals would do that, where I'd go see a band and then I'd be like, okay, let me see what the next band is. And it's like a totally different, which is kind of cool if you're going to stay at a venue the whole night. But if you're bar hopping, which you usually do for venues, you see 15 minutes of a band, run to another venue. Um, but I was trying to keep people at a venue. I'm like, no, this lineup is good if you like this band. So if you're a fan, just say Last Bullet, you're going to be a fan of Fallen Airs and, Lost Innocence and stuff like that. Like, you try to curate the nights, at Chosky's, you're not going to put, a death metal band, you know.
Unless it's all death metal bands.
No, but like you try to curate for the venue, for try to create an atmosphere at the night, and it's also beneficial to the venues if they can keep a couple people around. Not everybody has a draw. A lot of bands come from out of town during it, festivals, and you want to keep some heads in the crowd to watch these bands.
Oh, it's funny you say, they think some people might think it's cool to put these bands with different genres together. And like to me, that's one of those red flags.
Hmm.
It's like either you really know what you're doing or you really don't know what you're doing.
Yeah,
Because it's like if that was a radio station,
yeah,
people wouldn't listen to it.
exactly.
Yeah, and
Well,
that's good.
no, what was cool with Daryl at Indie Week, he'd message me a couple years before I started working with them. I'd get a message about a month before Indie Week starts, like, "Hey Dell, I have these slots that are open. Can you fill them?" So I did that for a few years, and then finally he was like, "Do you want to just come help book the whole thing?" Like, sure. And that was a cool experience because you get to see how a festival is built, a festival's run, working with volunteers. It really like opened me up to a different side of things. When you're thrown into the fire to tell 40 volunteers of what to do when you barely know what you're doing. It was interesting, but no, I learned a lot. It was pretty cool. I got to go to Ireland with Sumo Cyco when when they ended up winning one year. So basically, we took them over to Ireland, and then we followed them to England. We watched them in Blackpool, so it was kind of cool, and that was a good experience getting to know them and seeing how well they're doing now. They're definitely a big inspiration to us. Just they're a very DIY band, and that's where we are. We're doing everything in house as well. Great band.
Yeah, awesome skill sets within the bands. Actually, yeah, this put a song out, Vertigo.
So good.
Yeah, it's a great tune, and then the video is awesome when you're watching it because you can just see how their team functions, and you're just like, yeah, that's the skill set's important. It's one thing to just make music and put it out, but the idea of like you can do your videos and your visuals and like have an idea of what it's supposed to look and sound like.
Yeah, no, Matt and Sky got their shit on the go.
Powerhouses.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Trying to get them on it. Anyways, I wanted real talk. You've got 200 spots to fill on a festival. You're listening to bands, I take it. You're listening to submissions or whatever. Yep. How much, like real talk, how much of a song are you listening to? Because easy math, 3 minutes a song, 200.
Well, if you get like you're getting like 1,000 submissions. I like to give at least a song, at least 2 minutes. I think in 2 minutes you can tell a lot. And if I like that, then I would go to their next song. Or if I didn't, I might put it on the maybe pile and come revisit it. I wouldn't just dismiss a band, because when it's the first time you're hearing something right away, and I try to also be very open to everything. I like what I like, but that's not how you can be a festival booker. You got to just give everybody a fair chance and not just book the bands you like. So, some bands I became really big fans of. I would listen to them all the time when I'm at home. So like, I got to really dive into that. But when I was doing the bookings, I'd give the bands as much time as I needed to do that. I wasn't trying to cut anyone short. When you're applying, you're spending money, and I don't want to just be like, oh yeah, I didn't like the first 10 seconds and I want to skip it. Everybody deserves a fair chance, and that's what I was doing when I was at Indie Week. And it was great. Yeah, we grew both years I was there, so I definitely think was doing something right.
I think like listening to a band, for bands to hear that someone's going to listen to 2 minutes of your song, that either crushes them, or I think that they're also thinking like, that's a lot longer than we thought.
Yeah. I don't know how some other festivals work, but I don't think they listen to more than 10 seconds.
Well, because and that's the harsh reality of it with some recordings, where like you listen to it and like you instantly start judging it. Be it the sonic quality of it, or just the objective technical, merits of the recording. And you're saying too, like, even though it might not be your favorite genre, but being able to recognize, no, it's a good song, singer's good.
Talent is talent.
Yeah. But the idea is just like that 2 minutes of asking someone to listen to 2 minutes of a song and they don't know who you are. That's asking a lot. So even asking the whole song, and something for bands to keep in mind, like, is there some advice you would give to bands? Because I imagine there's a couple, they have like 1 or 2 slots to submit a song. Is there any advice of the type of song that they should be submitting?
Just put your best foot forward. I think if someone is doing the job right, they're gonna give you a chance. I don't think a lot of bands think like, no, we got to hit right away. It's got to be like a banger. Like, let's go. And it's like, yeah, that's good. But when you're hearing that 1,000 times, it's not being.
That's true. That's true.
So it's like, no, I want to hear, like a couple of bands that I started listening to after you dive in, and people usually write an album and it's a story, and then someone's giving you 30 seconds. It's like, that's, I want the artist to tell me what they're doing. I want to hear the story. I want to feel the what the song's about as well. It's not just, a lot of people would email me. They're like, hey, I uploaded those songs, but they're not mastered. I'm like, doesn't matter. Like, what's that gonna do to show me what kind of band artist you are? A garage recording is just as good, just to get an idea of who you are, especially a band that doesn't have much, right? Because not everybody can afford the studio recording.
Yeah, no, that's one of those things. It's like, and I mentioned to some bands, it's like, I'm sorry, but a mix and mastering's not going to help your chorus.
Exactly, you can tell right away. Yeah,
it will. There's certain things that will help sonically, and technically, but it will not help your chorus. To say, oh, it's mastered, so now the chorus is better.
But a lot of people have that mindset. Oh no, I have to have the best. It has to be pristine. It has to be perfect. It's like it's rock and roll, man. It doesn't.
Well, until it's like, pried from our hands and released.
That's it. That's when it comes to the point where you're releasing a proper product. Then you get, you bear down and you do the proper recording.
And so back with listening through, 500, 800, 1,000 bands. Is there something that you learned as a musician listening to that much music at the time?
That didn't really change how much music I was listening to.
You're still finding, where were you finding new bands?
Most of them were submitting through Sonic Bids or Reverb Nation.
No, I mean, if you were still listening to new band, like if curating for Indie Week wasn't, a big change from how you were listening to bands, were they submitting through you as a booker, or
I'd get a lot of CDs I chose as a booker promoter, so I'd get a lot of bands giving me CDs. I still have every single one, and I have my CD player in the garage, so anytime I'm in the garage or in the yard, I got my CDs going. I just bought another 200 CDs. CDs rock.
200 CDs.
Yeah, so I have like a whole whack of CDs now, and plus all the indie ones. I don't know. I just like putting on an album. It's Spotify is good and all, but it doesn't connect you with the artist when you put on a playlist. I like to listen to what an artist is trying to tell me on their record. It's I find that's better as a musician than it is listen to 1,000 bands. Like,
well, on that tip, like, because we're in a singles driven market, but then we're hearing some arguments that like albums are coming back. Don't get me started on the whole vinyl's coming back thing, because it's not. Just zoom out and you'll see how far down vinyl sales are. Yeah. But the idea of just like, how much power an independent artist has these days, where they can make a body of work, they can make an EP or an album and just put it out these days. And before, like even like as early as 10 years ago, to put your music out, you kind of needed to get it on a CD. And that was a hard cost. It was a couple $1,000s to like get it pressed up. And then, most bands have, 490 of their 500 pressed copies sitting in the basement or in the closet. And it's like, you can make a record, and then for, $100 or whatever the distribution costs for digital, it's like, you can just put it out there. And if there's enough demand, then you can get it pressed.
Mm-hmm. We can talk about this for how long? Yeah.
No, you can just a little bit. Cause
but you know what I mean? I don't know. I've always, like, the Crooked's currently working on an album. We released 2 EPs. We released a bunch of singles. But I feel like an album will complete our 5-year cycle. And from there, I think once you do that album, it depends how it does, then you can go back to singles or EPs for a bit, and then if the band's still successful, then you can do another album. But I think just for the band itself, we're so keen to do, an 8 to 10, 11 song album to also challenge ourselves. It's easy to record a single because you got it, you're going. Like a song every couple months is, hopefully that's what a band's doing, right? Like, it's great to stay active and like that, but I think I find if a band a fan can't connect with you, I don't think a fan can connect with you with a single as they can with a CD in their hand, where they're physically holding it and reading the liner notes and reading the lyrics on the book. When you're releasing a single that's just digital, you're not connecting with them in the physical aspect, which if you ask anybody in this chat, what their favorite albums are, it's definitely something they bought when they were young or had a connection with. Like
That's a good point, because like very rarely do we say like our favorite album or sorry, we always say like a favorite album or classic album, but like we don't always ask about like what's your favorite song. You know what I mean?
I like everything.
We just no, because you usually talk about
like, oh,
the
what are you
albums.
listening to right now? I don't know, everything.
I will say too, talking about the physical copy, it's just like that is a premium product, and especially with bands in Toronto, when they realize that you can go on tour and sell CDs for $15 or $20, and they look at you sideways because you're like, what do you mean? Because like CDs are, for most shows, again, back with the $5 shows, you got your $5 CDs as well. And it's like, at that point, I'm kind of just like, not to say give them away, but treat it like marketing. And to tie it.
That's what we did. Yeah, we used it as a business card.
Yeah, and that's how I think of singles. It's like singles to me, it's just like an easy digital business card. But to me, as an album, it's like put more infrastructure around it. And the way that I would look at it too, it's like I think of albums as a tool for touring promotion, where like you've got a body of workout and you can go tour and you can perform those songs. But I think it's a little bit trickier if you're putting out singles and you're trying to tour at the same time, and like keep those two cycles going. Put a bunch of songs out that should cover you for your year, and get back on the road and go play the songs for people and see what's reacting. And
yeah, but again, singles are pretty successful for a lot of artists. It all depends what you want to do as an artist, right? Singles are great. Like, it definitely works. I've seen it, with My Darkest Days, with you guys, Dead Set. I see the hits. You see the numbers climbing, and that means you can start touring to, you get your information from where people are listening, and you go hit those fans, right? That's sort of what you use your analytics on Spotify. If you're not using it like that, then
you're using it wrong.
Yeah, like you should. That's the only way. When we got added to a Spotify playlist with like 300,000 people after the show we did with Pop Evil, and a manager saw us and he's like, "Oh, I'll put you on the Spotify playlist," and
because that's how it works. Sometimes
that's how it works. And we're like, okay, let's see what the hits are. And funnily enough, all the hits were from Germany. Like, most of the hits were from US and Germany. So there was already a market for us, which was kind of cool. We're like, oh, there's an organic market for our music. So yeah, it was kind of cool.
No, it's a good thing to bring up though, because like, again, like some musicians have some very mixed feelings about Spotify and Apple Music, and and how these companies are kind of treating the content which we're providing for them. And we are getting compensated, but like not that much. But I still feel like the biggest thing that we get back, it's not the money, it's the analytics. If you've got 30,000 monthly listeners, your data is going to tell you something about where your fans are.
Yeah, you can book a tour off that, right?
You can book a tour, you can run your ads against it. It's just like the numbers are clear as day where things are working, and also the songs that people are liking and not liking that much. Yep. And it's just like, you don't have that, and you don't have those analytics from someone buying your CD.
Well,
you never have
shipping, but then that's another cost.
But if you got 12 songs on there,
you don't know
what they're listening to.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
So that's my argument. It's just like there's some upsides there. So yes, the payments could be better, and I've got another TED Talk of when I think the payments will get better and why. But it's just like pushing people to Spotify. It's not always about like, go listen on Spotify so that we can get our royalties from Spotify. It's like, so we can get your analytics and your data. Exactly. Where are you? What are you listening to?
Yeah, doing the YouTube ad campaigns and all that, seeing where all the ads.
Analysts on YouTube are great as well.
Yeah, you gotta just utilize all your resources.
Yeah, and you can double down on that stuff too, and that's one of the other things that kind of bring it full circle when it comes to promotion and travel and touring and stuff. It's like when bands don't put any money into promotion online. And yeah, you can sink some money into Facebook ads and YouTube ads and stuff like that. Also, you can horribly skew your numbers.
Yeah.
If you're not promoting to the right places, the next thing you know, it's just like, oh, we've got a huge following in Brazil.
Yeah.
We had a really low cost on our ads for whatever running, but it's like this is useless for what we're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of work there. You can sink some money into it to kind of figure out how to work that. But like once you get it, it's like, if you got 4 people in a band, and if everyone's kicking in $2 a day, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's still something working 24 hours a day to promote your band.
Yeah.
Online, or your new single or your video or whatever. Like it's just it is there.
Hey, can I take a second break?
Yeah, it's all good.
I just gotta run to the bathroom quick.
It's all good.
All right, give me a sec, guys. One sec.
I'm just gonna. I've had him for over an hour already, so I'm just gonna chat with. We'll look at the chat here for a second. Frank's saying hi on YouTube. Don is saying, I always do both. I purchase and add songs to my Spotify playlist. That helps too. Sometimes people don't think there's value in Spotify playlists from users, but actually it does. Everything that people do on Spotify helps Spotify figure out who they should push that artist or that band or that song to. So one of the things they do say is, for any bands that are listening, one of the things they do recommend, you put a song out, make like a 10, 20 song playlist that has your song on it with other songs that are similar, and then push people towards that. So hopefully they'll listen to it and listen through a bit of it. And that helps the algorithm. Just looking at chat here. Chris is saying, I miss having liner notes. Notes and lyrics. Just give me a thumbs up if you're good.
All good.
All good.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
It's all good. I just realized that we're like 80 minutes into this.
Yeah, I was like, oh no, I drank too much water.
It happens. We're just chatting about what Dawn was saying. Just like she does both. She purchases and added songs digitally. And that's the thing. Like you still can do that. And one of the things, it's like people who do want to support bands and artists, they're going to. I've seen firsthand people buy multiple CDs.
Yep.
Because they're supporting the band, or they give one away or something like that. So don't think that like digital distribution is doing that much damage when your reach is so much better these days.
Yeah.
Like,
doing both is definitely the way to go.
We can do both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I just think like we're doing an album for ourselves first, but we're still going to have the lead singles, the videos that we're going to be pushing, right? You have to.
Yeah. And and I think too, the way you're describing it, it's like, it's going to kind of wrap up at that 5-year cycle that you've had. It's like, I do think that records and, albums and EPs, like they're snapshots of where you're at.
Sorry. My mom made a comment there.
Oh, can I put that up?
Sure.
It's like, lie. It started playing drums with 3 or 4 with my pots. Oh, look at that.
Probably.
It's usually pots or pans or pillows. No, it's the other one
anything,
too.
Anything.
Yeah. Just start banging around on stuff. I'm just trying to think. I feel like there's going to be a part 2 of this down the road, because there's other things I'd love to dig in about with because in true spirit of Dear Bands, there's definitely some lovable advice, or advice meant with love, that we could be given to bands. That being said, is there any advice once we get shows back? Is there some advice you would give to bands when they get back out playing shows again, or some pet peeves you've had from bands over the years, as far as like, don't do this at shows, or like, don't do this to me as a booker or as a promoter or anything? Like,
I think just be respectful. Everyone's trying to do the same thing. Everyone's in the same boat, trying to get to the same destination in the long run, and treat each show. The one thing I always had issues with is like backline and getting 4 bands to agree on a certain backline. But the thing bands don't understand is when you have a backline, you get to promote to showcase more of your set. When you have less tear down and like the setup time, you try to take that away from shows so bands can actually play a full set. I think bands have respect the gear share, like that's key to me. That was always a big pet peeve, is like your 412 stack is not going to make a difference at, you know, a bovine or something. It's like, it's not. Just share the drums, like be nice. It's a drums, they're meant to be hit. I'm sorry, like I've had drummers be like, well, I don't want anyone else to play my drums. I'm like, they're drums, they're gotta hit them. I don't know. That's my pet peeve. The gear share is one of the big reasons why I actually got out of booking. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Even with the drums, it's like you could rent, like here, you could probably rent a kit for like $60 or something, and then no one cares anymore. But I felt with some drummers, if they didn't have a great night, they would just blame the kit. And I'm like, I'm not saying you're not going to sound as good on someone else's drums, because it's very much like, you know, driving someone else's vehicle or something. It's like, there's just little things that don't feel right about it, it shouldn't impact your ability to play to the point where like you can't play anymore, you know?
And also with the shared kit, the sound guy has had the same kick and toms all night, and
gives them,
he's dialed in, right? And then if you're switching the kit on him, now your first 5 minutes of your set is just
getting your drums back
levels
up.
Yeah.
And just lines on stage and stuff too.
When you have a 30-minute set, like, good luck at like giving your best. You know,
and then the bands,
you can't hear yourself, what's going on. You know, you sound great on stage, but it might sound horrible out there.
I was gonna joke, and then the band's got their tracks they got to set up, and there's like a system. Then they got their own in-ear monitor system they got to rig through, and you're just like, can you not just get on stage? I've been playing with tracks for like well over 10 years now, but it's one cable. It's the equivalent of having a keyboardist, you know, a keyboard player on stage, and it's taken care of. But yeah, with certain shows, if you've got 4 bands on your bill and you can't line them all up in front of each other, it's not that type of venue. I agree. Share your backline. Throw a couple guitar amps, bass amp, and basic 4-piece drum kit on stage, and call it a day.
Yeah, because you know that's where you're earning your mark, you're earning your stripes, right? And then eventually, if you do it right and you start playing bigger clubs and opening for bigger bands, your kit will be right at the front of the stage, even though it's yours. You will have no room to do anything, usually.
Yeah, no, we could joke about that. If you know, bands are used to rehearsing where everyone's looking at each other, and then they get on a big stage and then realize that they can't see each other. And it's like, if you really want to practice, set your instruments up about 4 inches from the wall.
Yeah.
So you've got no space to go anywhere, and everyone's just in a line across the front of the stage, and go, this is what it feels like to get to the next level. Because that's usually what happens. All the bands set up in front of each other. And then you look behind you,
and there's 2 drum sets.
Yeah,
covered.
There's
another couple mountains.
Yeah, so it's just I agree with you. It's if you're in a band, you're getting back to playing shows and
just
stuff.
Just be respectful. Like, you know, you're not rock stars until you're rock stars. Don't have the ego. The ego is what really kills a lot of bands. I've stopped working with a lot of bands just because of ego. It's like, I'm sorry, your ego doesn't match what you're doing. So, and promoters talk, bookers talk, venues talk, everybody talks. People don't understand, and you don't want to be on a shit list. You know, there was a few bands that were on shit lists when I was around, like, doing it. Just be nice. I don't know what else to say.
I want to hop in on the ego thing. I know we're going a bit over right now, but I want to talk about the ego thing, because like we both know like some artists and bands that are very successful, and I feel like they're all very humble. You know, for the most part, they're all very humble, but I find the times when they're not is because other people are not being professional. You know, I've seen a couple times where, yes, there's an artist or musician where like they've come in with that, you know, that atmosphere around them, like people need to know who they are, sort of thing. But at the same time, it's like the only ones the ones that have been humbled, I've seen like they got a little bit upset about things. It's just like things aren't running the way they should because someone's not doing their job.
Yeah.
You know, like the venue's not doing their job, or someone's dropped the ball on some, you know, tour logistics or something. And they're just like, they're annoyed because like we should be past this, you know, and that's one of those things too. Like when when everything's going well and everyone's good, it's like, that's when things are really fun.
Mm-hmm.
But if people are just like, you know, when you talk about the fake it till you make it sort of thing, sometimes it's like, it's one thing to go in with confidence, but it's
Yeah,
another.
that's for a performance, not
Yeah.
to other people. That's like,
Yeah. Giving attitude. It's like, that's not fake it till you make it. That's
no,
usually
like,
being a jerk.
exactly. And again, people talk, and you talk, other promoters talk, and uh, why be known for that when when it's already so hard?
It doesn't help.
No, you're right. Like the bands, from our sort of circle, like Crownlands, they're the sweetest guys. Like working with them, booking their shows, they are the most professional people I've ever worked with. They know what they want. They know what to expect when they're playing, and they're amazing. And I'm so happy that they're becoming so successful right now. They deserve it because they're the sweetest guys.
I will say it's probably getting to a good place to start wrapping things up here.
That's cool.
Cause I feel like I go to the bathroom soon too. But no, it's just like, it's seeing Crownlands, like a band like Crownlands on some of the big festival ad mats down in the States.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Because they're awesome. And
Yeah,
and they deserve it too. That's the other thing. You're just like, no, like they worked for it, like they did it.
Yeah.
And one of the things too is just like, and I tell bands, I'm like, you need to have the successful bands, like successful band or successful bands in your circle. You need somebody to help kind of say, you know what, like you can do this because we're doing it. Don't do exactly what we were doing, but like it can be done.
Another note with the whole advice is like, remember, we're all in this together. Treat your fellow band with respect. You're not better than anyone else. Treat it. You can only build communities, and most people's favorite bands came from a sort of scene. And if we can't build that scene where you're from, it's hard to break out, because if it's usually one band breaks and then and other bands follow that, right? And I feel like Toronto's been very lackluster in terms of community in the last few years. Everyone's just fighting amongst themselves and trying to get what little bit is being offered.
Well, it's been tough. I part of me wants to go, you know what, this is a part 2 thing, but at the same time, I think it's good information for bands when you're talking about just like having the scene in the community. Cause like when you look around and you go like, who really wants to do more? Who really wants to go to Europe and tour? Who wants to go to the US and tour? Who wants to go across Canada tour? Who wants to do an actual radio campaign for their song? Who actually, like, there's all these things. And it's like, when the scene's not doing that, then you don't kind of look to other people for inspiration either. Yeah. So it's tough when like a circle feels like, okay, it's kind of a hobby at this point. Like we want to play our shows and it's fun and we've got our community, but it's like no one's trying to break out of that. And there's that crabs in the bucket sort of mentality too sometimes, where like when people try to do something, you start hearing all the negative sides of it. It's like, well, it's going to cost a lot of money to go and do that. Well, yeah, because we're investing in our businesses.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't think it's an investment.
No. And I think that is a good place to call it on that. Sure. I want to bring up one more message here from the chat, because a fellow drummer and live sound engineer Jeremy Isbell, I'm a left-handed drummer and had to play right-handed kit and never blamed it on the kit, just made it work.
That's it.
We've had many talks, because again, Jeremy's got inside track because he knows what it looks like from front of house, but also he's been on stage as well.
Yeah.
Make it work.
Always, anything. That's the one thing.
Be nice to your sound guy. All right, I think it's a good place to wrap things up until part 2. Dale, is there anything else you want to bring up or mention? Give a shout out to?
Yeah, for anyone listening that doesn't know The Crooked, you can find us on all socials. We The Crooked, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all that fun stuff. We got lots of live videos and real videos and all that fun stuff, and hopefully we got some new content coming out very soon as well.
Excellent. I will put the details for all of that in the description below on YouTube for the replay. Just want to thank everyone again for tuning in tonight. and taking part in the chat. Anything that I missed, we're going to be going over it probably tonight or in the near future.
Yeah.
Thanks again to our guest tonight, drummer and booker. Again, not a promoter, the booker, Dell Orso. And again, happy birthday again. Hope
Thanks,
27.
Mike.
Hope 27 is good for you.
DearBands. Hashtag.
Once again, my name is Mike Langford. It's been DearBands Live. That's our time for tonight.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.